The one thing I really love about this show is it doesn't treat the absurd as a joke. It's not trying to be funny, but the comedy
Sure.
in it is absolutely a satire of a deeper issue. Comedy works really well when you're not trying to be funny or you're not trying to
Sure.
make a joke. So the writing, the performance, it's all taken as seriously. So the absurd stuff is also taken as seriously as the serious stuff. I mean, it's a testament to all the collaboration that goes into making a show like this.
Hi, I am Chad Anderson, one of the hosts of Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we are delighted to interview a film and TV professional. And this week, I am exceptionally pleased to be joined by editor Maura Corey, whose work includes Nobody Wants This, Acapulco, and this twisted and yet lovable series, Gen V. Welcome to the show, Maura. Thank you for joining us today to talk to us about Gen V.
Chad, thank you so much for having me. I love nothing more than to talk about editing, much to my husband's chagrin, I'm sure.
Yes, I understand. I have had family members and siblings who don't want to know about L cuts and drop frame time code, but I will talk about it.
For
Um,
sure.
in this series, you are kind of, and it's kind of a juggling act. For season one, you did episode 4 and episode 8, which was the season finale, and
Correct.
then for season 2, you also did episode 4 and episode 8. So you are kind of transitioning from different editors who are kind of starting the run,
Yeah.
kind of like a relay race here.
Yeah.
Tell me about, is that challenging to do, or is it easier because the dynamics already set? And what are some of the wrinkles of picking up, watching someone else, take what you've done and throw it into later episodes, as it were?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that I really love about the team over the Boys universe, I mean, the language was built from season one of the Boys, right? So it had a roadmap for all of us to follow when we did Gen V as a spinoff, which is just the way the pacing works and how the fighting is cut and the balance between humor and drama. And when you have such great edit partners like I have on Gen V, you really work as a team to maintain a visual language, but also steal, not steal from each other, but notice what other people are doing and really folding it into the work you do. So it's more about expressing the story as a whole and being able to enhance what was done prior, but also launching off stuff that maybe you had in your head that was that you see in the footage. Because every episode is different. So especially in episodic television, each episode is a different director. Each director
Yeah.
brings with a different style. So part of the challenges of being an editor on episodic TV is being able to support that director's style, but also making sure that it still fits into our world as a whole. So we are really ambassadors of what the producers are trying to do a lot too. So we have to work within a range of saying, okay, this guy's vision, whoever directed it, their vision is ABC, but how do we make that also integrate with the world as a whole? And I think that when you get a great team of editors like we have on Gen V, that we can work with each other to make that overall structure happen.
My friends and I would make little videos in our backyards, imitations of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Eventually that need to tell stories became more of a technical interest and an interest in the art. To me, what's exciting is using cinema in its full potential, which is rhythm and sound design and music. Our job is to set up expectations and then deliver on them. I'm Brian Cates, and this is my course in film editing.
You mentioned the idea of going from, some comedic elements to some dramatic elements. What I found really interesting about this series, and I realized it later as I continue to watch, there are some emotional moments in here. There are some real, heartfelt emotional moments between, the characters and the relationships with their family, and different circumstances of like Marie dealing with her sister, and those kind of things. And then it goes into the absurd, and it goes into exploding genitals, and it goes
Yeah.
into some really ridiculousness and graphically gross things and silly. But the trade-off or the handoff of that works somehow. And I think a lot of shows will try to do this. We'll try to have dramatic, and then a silly moment, and it takes you out of the dramatics. This just kind of tennis matches back and forth between being very serious and then very silly, or absurd.
Yeah.
And it does it without missing a beat.
Yeah.
So it handles it really well. Is that a challenge to do, to kind of pace yourself in terms of holding a moment that's, heartfelt or tear jerking, and then going into something, and you see yourself having to like kind of dial back before you go into something insane or explosive?
You do have to treat the one thing I really love about this show is it doesn't treat the absurd as a joke, right? So it's not trying to be funny, but the comedy in
Sure.
it is absolutely a satire of a deeper issue. So when you look at, let's say, in the finale, we have Godolkin can now control more than one person at a time, and he has the body. He has controlling these people who are bloodied and beat up, dancing to an oldie timey tune. And
Yeah.
to me, that's not. It is funny because it's dark, but it's also representative of this person's descent. His fall into just horrible power, right? So he's just being corrupted by this. So um, they treat and I think this is comedy works really well when you're not trying to be funny or you're not trying to
Sure.
make a joke. So the writing, the performance, it's all taken as seriously. So the absurd stuff is also taken as seriously as the serious stuff, even though we know it's funny and we try to land the jokes. We do it in a way that's character dependent and being true to the character, being true to the story. So when you take these big turns into, um, you know, uh, Emma and Sam running in to try to save Rufus, and then he roofies them, and then they have dicks drawn on their face. Like
Yeah.
that's funny, and we know
Yeah.
it's funny because it's a hard cut to funny. But it also represents something like, oh my God, we're in danger, and it's trying to keep that pace up. So it's just managing so it doesn't get emotional whiplash. But when we do land into those serious moments, that we take them seriously and we try not to make them melodramatic. We try to make them real to the character. Jordan and Marie break up. That's a real moment, right? So we want to make sure that lands. And that also, that emotional realism enhances the absurdity of what we're going into next. And I think that's what the great thing about this is it's a testament to the writing and the performing. I mean, it's a testament to all the collaboration that goes into making a show like this.
I have a bit of a strange question, which I'm not sure that you can answer.
Mm.
Um, this show, there is an undercurrent of kind of political satire, and I don't want to get too far into politics, but there is a lot of overt references to politics
Mhm.
in, make soups great again kind of ideas
Oh
in
yeah.
there, and there's some timely, things in there. Has it been a challenge, or has it been complicated, because politics in our current climate are evolving constantly, to throw those in there? Or is that already established in the writing, and has it have to been kind of, is it malleable, because things can change, and crisis can happen?
I
um
think it's interesting. I never thought about that. That's a good question. It's definitely in the writing, and it's very purposeful, and it is, I think, a commentary not just on what's happening today, but what has happened in the past. And that's one of the things I think is really interesting as far as uh, storytelling is history will repeat itself. So not only is it make soups great again, but it also harkens back to World War II, and they do
sure.
play upon that in their prequels, and how these ideals can be corrupted. Um, these ideals can be corrupted, and people can turn, and that um, again, it's like a commentary on how societies can be corrupted, much like you would see in like The Handmaid's Tale. I mean, that's darker, but like that
Yeah.
it's a commentary and it's about America, but it was really about Iran, but it could happen anywhere. So it's kind of this idea of politics is never evergreen, so you're never going to keep up with it. So, but if you commented as far as like a theme as a whole on how power corrupts, how being, superhero could corrupt, or how, segregation is bad, or, even in the smaller parts with Gen V, going into issues with these young women where, one's cut her, one's throwing up,
Yeah.
one is, and so those, I believe those levels of talking about issues make the show even more resonant,
Yeah.
because people can identify with it. And whether they identify with the good or the evil, I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it does definitely add a layer of uh adds layers, so it's not just, capes and blood, but
Yeah.
also
What
normal
I thought
people.
about, one of the things I thought about when I was watching both this and The Boys was there's an interview somewhere that I saw once with David Simon about making The Wire.
Mm,
And his goal in making The Wire was to show the demythification of the American police officer.
mm,
And I thought that was an interesting phrasing, the demythification. This feels like the demythification of the superhero. It takes away the mythos of the idea of a superhero being great, and it takes it to a level where superheroes are complicated and
flawed.
corrupted and
Yeah.
flawed and those kind of things, and it really takes you out of, if you had superpowers you would lose some of that.
I
um
mean, I think it's pretty brilliant that way. And that's what I love about Gen V is they have these characters who, so in The Boys, we know the superheroes are the bad guys. But
yeah.
in Gen V, you still see this youth and this brightness of saying we could be better than them.
Yeah.
So they still have this, you know, optimism about the world, even
Yeah.
though they see it crumbling around. And I think that's what makes it a true underdog story I mean, in my view. So.
So I noticed that in this, and kind of in opposition to The Boys is The Boys, and there are female characters and there are women characters in there, and there are women superheroes in there. This is a pretty female-driven storyline, and even the music that's added in are frequently women covering classic songs that are from previously from males. Uh, was that like thought about in terms of the development or the tone of approaching this, in terms of it's predominantly like a woman character show, and it's almost like a feminist empowerment show
Yeah.
in that regard. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, our music supervisors are amazing. Like I can't even
Yeah.
like all the choices they throw at us are just fantastic, and out of, sometimes inside the box, outside. I mean, they're all over the place in a great way. So to me, it's just a treasure trove of awesomeness. But yeah, I mean, I think basically, I mean, we're looking at the world through Marie's eyes, right? So she's our main
Sure.
character. So it makes sense to lean into more female vocals, because, like I said, our main characters are relatively female. I mean, Jordan is bi gender, so there's just a lot of fluidity about it. And I think one of the things we do with the music is just try to make it interesting and just find the vibe. It's almost an intangible. Like it's not like, I mean, I know we did go out and say, hey, look, we would like to make sure that female voices are heard in this, and a lot of the conversation around what's the right song. But sometimes, like on the finale, we didn't, it wasn't female vocals. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
that
I
stuff.
just
So
noticed.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
why not? If it feels good, I think for me, it's just like if it fits, we're in good shape. And we would lean towards female, but if it didn't work, it's like, what's the point of putting it in?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Was there, in terms of, you mentioned theme and you mentioned kind of style, was there tone that you were given from the showrunners in terms of how this should feel or what the mood should be? I'm always curious about that in terms of
I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, I mean,
direction you're given.
we sit through tone meetings. So
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard of tone meetings. So tone meetings, you just sit and listen to, what the script is supposed to be, and they tell it to the director. And I think, I think it's just, I mean, the way I approach every project is that you just want to be true to the scene. So if the scene is funny, make it funny. If the scene is sad, make it sad, and just find a way to make those elements connect. And if there's, Emma's a great foil for us because she is sarcastic and that is her armor, and that can help, you know, turn some things and, recognizing the satire and making it shine without making it, again, like I was saying, trying to be funny. And one of the things that's really great about working with showrunners like Michelle Fizakis and Eric Kripke is they are naturally funny people. So it comes through in the writing so, I'm going to say obviously, but it just, you can feel it in the writing. So when these characters take those lines and are able to deliver them with the creativity they do, you're like, see, you can feel it, right? So, and that's what you put forward. But yeah, I mean, the specific tone is satire, and satire is a really strange line to walk.
definitely.
You just gotta make sure you're being true to your characters. So.
Um, I'm curious, were there moments where dealing with, or not dealing with, I shouldn't say it that way, but working with the director or working with a producer, that there were moments where you said, "Hey, I don't think this is working this way. We need to revisit this scene
Oh,
or circumstance there." I'm always curious about the freedom
yeah,
that directors or producers give to say, Maura, we trust you, go this
right.
way and do it this version and
Well,
try it this way.
I have this motto, and I don't know if it's going to work well for me in the future. I don't know, but get fired for the right reasons, right? So
Ooh, I'm
if
writing that
I
down.
if I see a script that is great, you read it on paper and you're like, oh wow, this is really great, and then you see it put together in your sequence, and you're like, this doesn't work, which happens like almost all the time. I will restructure just so I can figure out what works. So, and this isn't the fault of anything. It's just, there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit. That's just the way it goes. And I would be surprised if anybody in this business would say, oh yeah, exactly what was on the page went to the screen. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I will say, in episode 4 of season 2, or it's the big fight between Jordan and
Yeah.
Marie, and there's the heist aspect of them trying to get the camera in the room to get Cypher to confess he's a human, and the original script read great, like I said, it read great, and then I put it up in front of me, and I'm like, oh shoot, this we're losing momentum on some of this stuff. So we would, the scene with Emma in the pipes, we would lose where she was. So we did a lot of restructuring to make sure that it cross-cut in a way that it felt like everything was happening at once,
Mm-hmm.
and you kept up the tension and made sure that we could still track all these storylines of everybody trying to come together to the point where Cypher then takes over uh, Jordan's body, and then being able to understand that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So because he doesn't have glowing eyes or a sound effect, it's just he just does it.
Sure.
And so how do you show that and make sure the audience is tracking, and we make sure that we know that Emma's dealing with this issue of trying to grow big and small without making herself feel terrible, and so all of that tension. And again, in the finale with that huge fight scene at the end,
Yeah.
like all of that is written in probably not the way you see it, because of
Sure.
the way you need the excitement to happen, and making sure that when you can see, you keep the tension up with Godolkin trying to control these people, but people flying out a black hole, and then starting to fight, and then you're cross-cutting all this fighting. And Steve Boyum for the finale just shot it brilliantly, and had on TV schedules, I don't even know how we get this stuff. It's just so fast. And the fight scene we shot over like the course of like 4 days or something. So you're getting just pieces of footage here and there and there and there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and then figuring out where your problems lie, because you can't really go back and reshoot too much. And, how do we track all, again, it's just about tracking stuff. So it's restructure is the name of the game in any episode. And even in like something like Nobody Wants This, you're restructuring stuff to make sure that it feels like a natural flow of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but that's part of the, I mean, that is part of the art form of having that freedom to say,
Yeah.
that, happy little accidents kind of thing of
Yeah.
changing some of the approach of saying, hey, this worked on paper, but then all of a sudden we have to, reevaluate how this moves us. And that is, part of the creative process, I think, for, any film or TV show. I have a weird question. I guess a weird question. With a show like this, and from when I first started watching The Boys, I was immediately grossed out.
Yeah.
From episode one, I was like, well, this was bold. And
Yeah.
then they did it for another 2, 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Gen V, I was prepared. How much content of horrifyingly disgusting nature are you getting B-roll in that are you like looking through your eyes or cringing at like I can't imagine
Oh,
that they
well,
have like 7 takes of VFX of
so my threshold is pretty high. I would
okay, that's good. I
That's
think you
good.
need
But
that.
yeah, I will say this though, and I think in terms of a show like this, we try to do as much practical VFX as we can, which I
Sure.
think is really funny. So like, the scene where Emma gets in the toilet and you just see Cypher
Yeah.
sit down.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I had to watch that quite a bit and I thought it was hilarious. That is absolutely practical. We got a stunt guy to do it. It was like, hey, there you go. But then there's the stuff like the exploding goat where Marie's trying to learn her talent and she floats
And yeah.
and blows up. Well, I mean, we see what I see is a cutout of a goat and then an explosion of a blood bag. So it's really not that disgusting because it's not quite finished yet. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it so much goes into what our brilliant special effects teams do to make it look like that. So most of the time, and this is where editing gets really funny, you get into the micro of it. So I'm more like, oh, that doesn't sound gross enough. We need more like mud bubble sounds, or we need something that sounds more like a splatter. So you're trying to like bring it alive in the temp sound effects so we can sell it to say, hey, look, this is the timing and this is how good it's going to look once, the VFX vendors take it over and make it go to explode. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
we're not really seeing like even with Marie and her blood lassos. I mean, we don't see that until after special effects. We temp stuff in, but it's really just
Sure.
an actor throwing their hands out and pretending to lasso something. So we have to put all that imagination in our head, like what would this look like, and where is the blood falling, and because like it is a very visceral show.
It is a very visceral show.
Yeah, but a lot of it comes in VFX.
Yeah, it's a really well written show that I would love to tell my mother to watch, and I don't know if I
Yeah,
can.
that's really funny. My mom said when I started working, she goes, "Should I watch Gen V?" And I'm like, "No, mom, this is
No,
not
no,
good."
I don't like. You'd
Not,
be fascinated by the politics, political satire, but I don't know if
yeah.
you could handle,
Mm,
the butt sitting in the toilet and the
no,
exploding foreheads.
floating
Um,
foreheads would not be good.
a bit of backstory for my next question. I teach at a college and I teach video editing at a college,
Mm,
and we have, unfortunately, a predominantly male
mm,
student population.
for sure.
I teach advanced video editing, and it gets into a male student population. And I've had students of mine, female women students of mine, who've come to me and said, is there a place for me in video editing or film editing? And I'm excited about this. I'm interested in this. And there was a time where there wasn't. And I'm starting to see more of an evolution. And through Filmmaker U, I've been interviewing a lot more women editors. And so in terms of your experience in this field, is it getting better in terms of women in editing? And I've been trying to tell them, yes, there are lots of women who are editors. Is it still difficult, or has it been improving?
Numbers would tell you it's the same. So roughly we make up maybe 25% of
Yeah.
the people out here, and the numbers haven't changed. The thing that I do like about what's going on is there are so many more people advocating for women, whether it be women to women or men to women, to make sure that there's uh, good editors out there, whether you're male or female, but making sure that our our voices don't get lost into the fray. And I have so many friends of mine because I work in a predominantly male industry.
Yeah.
I have male friends who advocate for me, and I think that's hugely important as I advocate for females and try to make sure that these doors are open because it is difficult. It's more difficult to it is a diff let's say it's more it's just there's more guys and there are more men than there are women, so eventually you're fighting for different spots, right? So
Sure.
it's just I think it's just wanting to make sure that representation happens, and that women are able to reach out and talk to people about it. I actually I'm a mentor as well. So through ACE, I work for, I volunteer for the ACE internship committee. And
Okay.
yeah, which is a great way to expose people to the industry and start networking for people. And we advocate for diversity in editing, because the more diversity you bring into storytelling, the better the storytelling is going to be. And because
Absolutely.
different points of view is what makes these things exciting, I think. So I don't
Yeah,
know if that answered
I
your
keep
question.
no, that definitely does. I keep trying to introduce, more different diverse voices into
Yeah.
the editing pool in my student, representation, because it is they are misguided, and I had a student come to me and say, "Oh, I didn't know there were any women editors." And I'm like, "No, there are so many good women editors. Like you should don't, run away from this program, and don't run away from the opportunities, because, it's important."
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's why representation is huge. And I know a lot of friends of mine, you want to see someone who looks like you doing the thing you want to do. And
Yeah.
and it helps to make it not as scary. Like I grew up in a very brash household, so for me, speaking up isn't a problem. An you know,
Yeah.
I'm not an extrovert, but I'm not a wallflower by any means. And so,
Sure.
um, that's one of the things I like to try to at least be there if somebody has a question. I mean, I might not be able to solve it, but
But I mean, just as you said before, the representation is important. It's so valuable to see someone because like I said, my students shocked me that they just didn't know that this was, an
I see
opportunity
that
for
though.
them.
The internship program is great because we get 2 interns a year, and they get to sit in a feature room. They get to sit in a TV room. They get to sit in or a scripted TV room and an unscripted TV room. They get mentorship. They start getting networking, and this for this young. I mean, because the industry is getting really even tighter now. Having those networking and being around people and being able to talk to people who've been through the process is such a valuable asset to teach and foster in the new generation of storytellers.
Curious about creating high-quality YouTube videos? Enroll in video editing and production classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop to sharpen your skills and turn a hobby into a career. Start your journey to becoming a pro today.
Last question. If you weren't doing this, if you weren't a video editor,
Yeah.
either real or fantastical, would there be something else? Is there a young Maura dream
Oh
of
yeah.
doing something else as a job?
Honestly, I'm actually not joking on this. I mean, I'd be a lounge singer for sure.
For sure.
I mean, that would be fantastic. I could be if I could be in a Vegas lounge just singing standards,
Yeah.
that would be
Little
awesome.
Sinatra, a little
Yeah. I mean, I'm not I would say my singing voice is above average, but it's more about just the vibe,
yeah. Wow, that's
That would be something.
Lounge singer. That's a new one. That's a new one for this question.
Yeah.
Maura, thank you so much. You've answered all of my questions and more. I think we really appreciate it, and I think everyone watching is going to have a fascinating time with this. That's going to be it for us today. That's it for us this week. And again, you can check us out at filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Again, I'm Chad Anderson, and we'll see you next time.